All right, so it's time to begin. So if you don't know who I am Dr. Christy Mulkey, and I am the workshop coordinator for 240 Tutoring. And I am doing live videos every Tuesday morning right here in your CTC test prep group to try to help you best prepare for your exams. So if you like this or have questions, feel free to jump in and comment as we go. If not, this video will record and you can watch it later. So if you couldn't join us live, I hope you're watching this later. And again, you can still drop questions or feedback in the comments, and we do check those and we'll come back to them. So we're going to take a look today at the CBEST Math, because this is something we get asked about frequently. And last week I did a video on CBEST Math, and we looked at Skill Factor 1 Part A, and today we're going to look at Part B. So I'm going to share my screen with you so we can get started and do some math this morning. So I'm going to share my screen. And so now you should be seeing a PowerPoint. Make that a little bit bigger for all of us. Oop. All right. So again, we are looking at Skill Factor 1, but we are looking at Part B. So today we're looking at statistical principles. So we're looking at the statistics part of this skill. And so again, if you're not catching this live, you can watch it recorded. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I'll be looking at those as we go. So let's get into this. Again, every week I'm doing these videos that are specific to your state and your test. I'm going to talk about your standards and your competencies, what you're expected to know, and then we're going to work through some questions where I can teach you some strategy and some skills and provide some explanation. If you didn't catch our video last week on the first part of this skill factor, I encourage you to go check that out right here in this Facebook group. All right, so again, we're looking at Part B on statistical principles. And so here we're looking at performing arithmetic operations with basic statistical data related to test scores. So averages, ratios, proportions, and percentile scores. We're looking at understanding the basic principles of probability and predict likely outcomes based on data that's provided. Then we're looking at interpreting the meaning of standardized test scores. And if you're looking at this and you're looking at these verbs, perform, so we know we're going to have to do some calculation. We're going to have to understand the math. Here, it's looking at understanding, so we're going to have to use what we know to answer the question. Here, the verb is interpret. And I want to point that out, because that tells you right now that those questions are going to be a little bit more difficult, because that's a higher level of thinking verb. So when you see verbs like this in the descriptive statements of your standards, know that those questions are going to be a little bit more difficult. Okay, so let's do some practice questions. Now, all of these practice questions are coming from the free and public practice questions that the state provides. And I have that link down at the bottom of every slide. So if you want to go check those out, you can. So we're going to work through question number 1, and this is looking at averages. It says, during a semester, a student receives scores of 76, 80, 83, 71, 80, and 78 on 6 tests. What is the student's average score for these 6 tests? Now, we're going to highlight, what are we looking for? We're looking for the average score. Now, if you're unsure, average would be the same as finding the mean. So if you can remember how to find mean, you can remember how to find average. For both of these, the way you find this is the sum of the terms, divided by the number of terms. And my pen is really lagging today. I'm going to try to reset that here in just a second. Okay, so the sum of the terms divided by the number of terms. Now, if you don't remember, sum is looking at addition. So we have to add up the terms. So we're basically going to take these numbers and add them up. 76, 80, 83, there we go, pen. 71, technology just doesn't always cooperate as fast as we'd like it to. 80 and 78. And I just pulled them right out of that list just as they were listed, and we're going to add those up. Now I'm going to show you some shortcuts. I like to make tens when I add large groups of numbers. So I'm going to see 6 and 3 is 9 and 1 is 10. And then I can add 8 onto that. Now that worked out nicely where I added right down the column, but that won't necessarily always be the case. So I have 18 there. And I'm going to regroup that 10. And now I've got to add up this side. Now I see duplicate numbers, so I'm going to cheat to make this go a little bit faster. I have 3 8s, which I know would be 24. I have 3 7s, which I know would be 21. And then I have that 1 up there at the top. This is a lot easier to add up. 4 5 6 and 4. So that column adds up to 46, and I get a total of 468. All right, so just showing you a few tricks to make the math go a little bit faster. Remember, you have no calculator on this test, so you have to do it all by hand. Now we're going to divide. Remember, it's the sum of the terms divided by the number of terms. That's a ratio right there, and the line in between means divide. So we're going to take that sum of the terms, 468, and we're going to divide it by the number of terms. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 terms. So we divide 468 divided by 6. So a little long division for you here this morning. So I know I can't divide 4 by 6, but I can divide 46 by 6. If you know your basic facts, this is going to go much faster. 6 times 7 is 42. 6 times 8 is 48. So I can't go with 8 because that's more than 46. So 7 times 6 is 42. Next step in long division is subtract. Then we got to bring down that 8. 48 divided by 6, you just heard me say it. 6 times 8 is 48. 8 times 6, 48. And we have no remainder. So the average score for this student would be a 78. So the correct answer here is C. So notice there's lots of easy ways to mess up because they have these answers so close together. So if you make a little error in that addition or division, it's very easy to select the wrong answer. All right. Again, I'm going to emphasize knowing your basic facts makes the math go faster. So remember, average is the same as mean, sum of the terms divided by the number of terms. Okay. So add, then divide by the number. Okay. Now let's move on to the next question. Number 2 is dealing with percentages. And just like the mean we kind of set up as a ratio, we can set up a percentage as a ratio. And a percent is basically any share in relation to the whole. Okay, so we're looking at a share and its relationship to the whole thing. So let's read this question. It says, use the table below to answer the question that follows. On the 3 sections of a math test, a student correctly answered the number of questions shown in the table above. What percent of the questions on the entire test did the student answer correctly? So again, I'm going to note, what are we looking for? Percent. Now, I just told you in a percent, we're looking at the share, and we're going to set that up as a ratio in relationship to the whole. And just like on the last one, that line tells us to divide. Okay, so we got to figure out, in this case, how many questions did the student get right versus how many there were altogether. So very similar to the last question. So now let's look at this table. I have the total over here, and I want to show you where mental math can come in real handy. I'm not even going to set this up to add it. I'm going to say 20, 40, 50. I added the tens column. 2 5s is another 10, 60. If you can do some mental math, it will go a lot faster. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I add that tens column first. 20, 30, 40, 7, 48. Now, of course, if I just did that and I lost you, you can absolutely set this up and do 20, 15, 25, add that up, and you will still get 60. And then you can do 17, 11, and 20, add that up, and you will still get 48. So if what I did confuses you, go ahead and do the math the old school way. But hopefully some of you picked up on some strategies there. I'm just skip counting. 20, 40, 50, and 2 5s is 60. 20, 30, 48. All right, so just making that math go a little bit faster. So now we know the share, the number of questions he got right was 48 out of the total, which is 60. Now, if you know, in a ratio or in a fraction, this line stands for division. So now we just set up a division problem. And some of you are thinking, oh my goodness, I need a calculator. You don't, you're okay, I promise. So set this up as 60 divided by, or actually, I set that up backwards. I'm going to erase, if it'll let me have my eraser. I was so focused on trying to get the pen to work at a decent speed. There we go. Now I'm gonna turn my pen back on. Pen. Okay, so we're actually gonna divide the top line by the bottom, okay? So I just wrote that wrong. We're gonna put 48 inside and 60 is our divisor, okay? So 48 divided by 60, all right? So if you're thinking, I don't know how to do this, you know you can't take 48 and split it up into 60 parts. I'm actually gonna have to add a decimal and add a 0 behind that decimal to work with this. Now I wanna show you a trick. Some of you might be thinking 60 goes into 480 how many times? I don't know. I want you to just ignore these zeros for a minute because they're fairly irrelevant. They add place value, but we really are just looking at these other digits. 48 divided by 6. Again, if you know your basic facts, really helpful. 6 times 8 is 48. So we're gonna have an 8 here. And then you can multiply it out to check yourself. 8 times 0 is 0. 8 times 6 is 48. Subtract, and we have no remainder. So we're really looking at this right here. And some of you might be thinking, but 0.8 is not an answer choice. It's not an answer choice. Well, when we're looking at a percentage, it's what part of 100, like a 100% on a test. And so I've got to change this, and I'm gonna move that decimal over 2 places, just like there are 2 zeros at 100%. So I'm gonna move that decimal over 2 places. And you're maybe thinking, well, now I have a space here. We put in a 0. So 0.8 becomes 80%. Correct answer is D. Now, if you forget about the decimal, if you got the 0.8, you should be able to quickly see, oh, okay, it's gotta be D. It's gotta be D. All right, now, if you had a calculator, you could put it in the percentage time, but with no calculator, this is the best way to do it. Now, I wanna point out some things. Notice, if you just stopped right here at adding the number of questions correctly and didn't carefully read to see it was looking for a percent, you could have easily marked answer choice B. They love to throw you off that way, love to throw you off, okay? So percentages, also set that up as a ratio. All right, now let's look at some probability. It says, Liliana has a bag of marbles. The bag contains 18 black, 15 red, 11 blue, and 8 white marbles. Liliana randomly takes a red marble from the bag and leaves a marble on the table. What is the probability that she will take a red or a white marble from the bag? Okay, so I like to just draw this as a real simple T-chart. And I'm just going to list what we have. So in this bag, I had 18 black. I'm going to do this as quickly as I can because this is a time test. I had 15 red. I have 11 blue. And I had 8 white. Now, when we're dealing with the probability of something occurring, again, much like the percentage, it's going to be looking at the number of times it can occur and the total number of possible outcomes. So the number of times it can occur over the total possible outcomes. So what I'm going to do is work with this table. So it says Liliana randomly takes a red marble from the bag and leaves the marble on the table. Notice she did not put it in the bag. So now instead of 14 or 15 red marbles in the bag, we have -1, which would be 14. So we now have 14 red marbles in the bag. All right. And then it says, what is the probability that she will draw a red or a white? So now we know how many marbles are in the bag. 18 black, 14 red, 11 blue, 8 white. And it said red or white. So we're going to take those two and add them together. 14 plus 8, if you need to write that out, you can, is going to give us 22. So that's how many times it could occur. And then we have to put that over the total. So we've got to add all of those marbles up. What's our total? 18, 14, because that one red one's gone. 11 and 8. If we add that up really quickly, I'm going to see 8 and 4 is 12. I'm giving you a second to do the math with me. And again, I'm trying to make 10s plus 8 is 20 and 1 is 21. We group that 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my total is 51, 22 out of 51. Correct answer is D. Now I want to show you how easy it is to accidentally miss this question. If you forgot to take out that one red where it talks about she randomly takes a red marble from the bag and leaves it on the table. My pen is just has a mind of its own today. Okay, leaves it on the table. If you didn't do that, you would have ended up with 23 and 52. And notice that answer choice is there. So this is key that you read carefully. Read carefully. All right, let's go to the next one. Now this one's looking at a proportion. This one seems difficult at first glance, but really once you recognize it as what it is, it's actually pretty easy. It says, at a college, approximately 2 out of 5 seniors go on to attend graduate school. There are 750 seniors at the college. How many would be expected to attend graduate school? So again, we're going to set this up as a ratio. So that part or that share, 2 out of 5 seniors. And we know there are a total of 750 seniors. So I'm going to take this and set it up as a proportion. 2 out of 5 is going to equal something out of 750. So once you see how to set this up, I bet a bunch of you are like, now I know how to do this, because you remember the trick that you were taught in school to cross multiply and divide. So I'm going to take 750 times 2. And if you need to work this out just like this, do that. if you can do a little mental math and go, well, 7 and 7 is 14. So 700 and 700 would be 1400 plus 250s would be another 100. That'd be 1500. You can do that math in your head. All right. So we've got 1500. So we cross multiplied. And now again, this line stands for divide. So we're going to take that 1500 and divide it by 5. Some of you can already see the answer. All right, 15 divided by 5 would be 3. 3 times 5 is 15. And we have zeros. And since all the rest is zeros, we know we can fill in these last 2 digits with zeros. And we have an answer of 300 seniors. So that would be the missing part of that ratio. Okay, so you can do some mental math here. Even if you got to 1500 and you knew 1500 divided by 5, I know 15 divided by 5 is 3, easy answer, and you can quickly move on. So I think the only thing that makes this question actually difficult is just knowing how to set it up. I think as soon as you know to set this up as a proportion, you know to cross multiply and divide. It's one of those key phrases that sticks out from middle school. Okay, so just knowing that's a proportion, 2 out of 5, and then we're looking for what number out of 750, and there is a relationship. Both ratios are talking about seniors. So fairly easy to do once you know what to do. Now let's look at one more question, okay? This one is that last standard that I talked about where the verb was interpret. And so this question's the hardest out of all of them. So let's read this carefully. It says, Kim is in the 10th grade and takes a standardized science test. Use his test scores below to answer the question that follows. All right, so we see his raw score is 72, percentile was 88, stay 9 is 8, and the grade equivalent is 12.1. It says Kim's test scores indicate that. And you've got to reason through the best interpretation of those scores. So you can see this question doesn't require a whole lot of math, but it requires a whole lot of thinking. So first of all, you have to know what these are. So I'm going to walk you through this. Raw score is simply the number correct. That's all that is, number correct. So on this test, we don't know how many altogether, but we know that Kim got 72 questions correct. It's all the raw score is. Percentile, now this is deceiving. A lot of people will think, well, that's the percentage grade. No. It would say percentage grade, okay, or percentage score. This is percentile. I want to point out to you that that percentile, I'm going to write this one if my pen will cooperate. Okay, percentile is a comparison to other people who took the test, okay? So it is scoring, putting those scores in a range from first percentile to 99th. And it places everybody's scores in there. And so that percentile tells you, you've probably seen this on a standardized test you've taken, what percentage of kids you did better than. So we can tell that Kim did better than 88% of the students that took this test. That's not his percentage grade or score. It means he did better than 88% of the students that took this test. All right, stay 9. Now this is probably the one where people are like, I have no idea what this is. Basically, stay 9 or a standard 9 score is a way to get scores on a 9-point scale. All right, so it's trying to get it down to a single digit. And the way this is done is with a traditional old bell curve. So let's say here are our scores ranging from, 0 to, let's say, 100. And we put that traditional bell curve of how students perform, okay? And basically what a stay 9 is saying is down here is 1. Way up here is 9. So if you scored in those ranges, you would have a stay 9 score of 1 or 9. And then we keep going Now this is not going to be drawn to scale, so just bear with me. 2 and 8, and then 3 and 7, and then 4 and 6, and you can see what's going in the middle, 5. So that's basically what a stay 9 score is. So he scored an 8, so he's at the top end of that bell curve, okay? You should see some similarity between these two. They shouldn't be a huge difference, okay? Because if I'm in that standard 9 score that's way on the top end of the bell curve, I should have scored better than a large percentage of my peers who took this test, all right? And the same thing with the opposite end. If I have a low stay 9 score, then I did not perform better than a lot of students who took that same test, all right? I'm at the bottom percentage, okay? So that's what that is. A grade equivalent is pretty much what it means. What grade level equivalency does that score reflect? The first number before the decimal, the whole number, is going to be the grade, and behind the decimal is going to be the month. So this would be equivalent to 12th grade first month. So the first month of 12th grade. So far, so good. Okay. So now we can reason through the answers now that we know what these terms mean that we're looking at. So answer choice A says he scored as well as or better than 72 of the test takers. Now we can rule out A because 72 was his raw score. That's the number he got correct. He actually scored better than 88%. So in order for A to be correct, that would have to be 88% of the other test takers, okay? So not just 88 students. All right, let's look at answer choice B. 28% of the test takers scored better than he did. Ooh, that one's kind of tricky. So he scored better than 88. Well, if we're looking at 100% minus 88, he scored better than 88. So how many scored better than him? I can do this basic math here. A lot of you can probably do this in your head, and we get 12. So 88 to 100 would be 12. So actually only 12% of the test takers scored better than he did. So B is also not correct. C, he would perform adequately in a 12th grade science class. Well, this said 12th grade first month. That could be the answer. So let's keep going. We're just going to put a little dot by that one. D, he scored as well as or better than 88% of the test takers. All right, that 88 is that percentile score, and we know that's what it tells us. He scored better, or at least as well as, because there may have been some people who made the exact same score as him, than 88% of the test takers. So that we can prove with this data. I'm going to say that again. This one we can actually prove with this data. Now I'm going to go ahead and look at E. It says he answered 72% of the questions correctly. We know that this is a number, not a percent, not a percent. He actually got 72 questions right. We don't know the percentage grades. They didn't tell us that. So it has to be E. Now, a lot of people will stop reading at C and select C because it seems reasonable. And it does, but we can't adequately is vague. We cannot prove that based on this. Because are we dropping him in the middle of a 12th grade science class? Is it month 6? Well, then he's behind everybody else and he's probably not going to perform adequately. We don't have enough data and information to choose C. We can prove answer choice D. So in this case, D is correct. Now I'm going to see, we have a comment here. I'm just going to make sure this isn't a question. To choose. Yep. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that compliment. Happy to help. So we're going to move on. And I'm going to point out a few little reminders. Just like I said last week in our video, you need to know the test format. Total questions, about how many you need to get correct to be considered passing. The style of questions, knowing that style of questions. Guys, just going back and reading the verbs in those standards helps you see. I might have some questions that make me think because the verb is interpret. Know your time limits. Remember, there's no calculator. And for a timed test, that can be very tricky. I'm going to tell you this, something to speed you up on math. If you are not proficient with addition, subtraction, and at least multiplication, division would be helpful for long division. You need to refresh those basic facts. If I can't look at you and go 6 times 8 is, and you give me that answer, if I can't say 35 divided by 5 is, and you give me that answer, you need to refresh. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, do I have to dig out flashcards? No, guys, there are apps you can put on your phone that will let you just, when you have downtime, just refresh those facts. I used to have college students who would tell me, well, that makes me feel stupid. They don't know those. Don't feel stupid. If you haven't used it in a long time, you lose it. So refresh those basic facts so that you can do that math faster since you don't have a calculator. Remember to familiarize yourself with the screen and how it looks. There's a tutorial on the CTC exams page, so go check that out. Practice not only questions, but moving quickly. That's going to be critical. Now, last but not least, if you need more study, if you need more practice, I highly suggest you go check out our study guides. I've got the link right here. If you just Google 240 Tutoring or you just get 240tutoring.com, you can click and find the study guides. We also have lots of free resources right here that you can check out to help you prepare for your exam. These videos will stay right here in our Facebook groups, and I'm also uploading them to YouTube. So if you're more of a YouTube user, you can go check these out on YouTube, and you can also send them out to your friends who might be also studying for this exam and need some help. So I hope this has been helpful. I will be back next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Central Time, 8 a.m. in California. And I will be live in this Facebook group tomorrow doing office hours, responding to questions, giving some helpful tips and hints. So if you have questions, drop them in this group. I promise you I will be looking tomorrow, and I want to help you. So let me know how we can help. So again, I'm Dr. Christy Mulkey, the workshop coordinator for 240 Tutoring, and I wish you all the best as you prepare for your exam. Thank you.